7 p.m. Good day wherever you are. I'm Akua Lezli Hope, speaking to you from the land, the ancestral land of the Onondaga, also known as the Seneca, keepers of the Western Door, in the area currently called the Southern Finger Lakes region of New York State. I pay homage to the Seneca, past, present, and future, as I do to my own ancestors, by whose grace I exist and am sustained. Thank you to Poets in Pajamas and to Sundress Publications for enabling me to present and connect my creations on their platform through this wonderful opportunity and in other ways. I'm dedicating this reading or focusing this reading on speculative poetry. I called speculative poetry the poetry of possibilities, and it includes alternate history, cryptids, monsters, cyberpunk, dystopia, fairy tales, fabulism, fantasy, folklore, futurism, horror, magic, mythology, occult, paranormal, robots, science fiction, shifters, slipstream, solar punk, space opera, superheroes, supernatural, sword and sorcery, sword and soul. Where am I? Oh my gosh. Steampunk, time travel, post-apocalyptic, and weird. It takes all poetic forms plus sci-fi coup. Speculative poetry is a new term, but speculative poetry has existed for time immemorial. Humanity's first literature was in verse, and it was speculative. So Gilgamesh, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, Beowulf, the Iliad and the Odyssey, all speculative poetry. We're going back to the future. I'll begin with one of my newest works. No, maybe I'll start with an older work. This has been a time for me of grief and joy, grief and healing. So I want to start with Above for 9/11. My family lost a cousin in the falling of the towers. Above. Light workers saw angels and the ancients rise up from the Hudson to ease the pain, catch souls before bodies hit hard ground. They saw wings between polluted hail of fractured edifice after jet-fueled fury, madness, fire, and rage. Saw angels and towering ancients stride toward the wailing wound, catch, cleanse, soothe the lost. Land keeper Lenape, one with the land, rose for their home, Mannahatta, to their love and their duty. Day, the sky fell, raining lives and loss from around the globe, thither and yon, here and beyond. Prayers for the trauma, swift directions for the dead, shelter for the shocked, and for days above the horror, through the dense cloud of pain and sorrow, floated an immense embrace of wings above. I have a creature living with me that is so incredibly indifferent to me. And yet I wrote a poem about him. Watch. He tells me nothing, this dark feline emissary I serve, but daily, when not otherwise occupied, watches the portal interdimensional on the back wall next to the door, other side of tall kitchen cabinets near the floor. Exterminators have tested for incursions of trapped or traveling vermin, insects, and found nothing. What warps or shimmers there? What pulses or dilates, streams or inhales? Is he guard, greeter, or communicant without fear of discovery or relief from duty? For we see little, perceive less and less, and no one believes. This next poem took me a decade to write, and not that the writing of it was so hard, but I had to get over the experience. So while I've rendered it in the realm of the speculative, on the other hand, it's sadly true. That division for Monica. One day, ghost hunters will come to this building with their machines and see our runes carved in institutional stairwells, Sharpie scribbles left where we met in secret in passing after lunch and before conferences to guard our sanity and protect ourselves from the demons we worked with. Even so, it was not enough as they chanted in the meeting rooms, cabaled on the golf courses, covened at their secret dinners, passed signs as typos in memos, the letterhead in that strange font, and the way they looked at our mouths as if our clear speech was unfathomable and every action questioned, though they knew no better, often worse. But we were not to be trusted, even though hired, vetted, selected. We could not get to the roof to undo the daily damage. We never broke that ceiling, a roiling sea of molten glass, 2,300 degrees. We choked on their gases, smelled sulfur leaking from deodorant shielded armpits, saw how the masks slipped even in the fluorescence, that the buzz of the bulb, sometimes sparking, were a warning of the unnatural state of things. Crows screamed in the narrow alley from the tiered parking lot. We tried to put words in our desks, which were disappeared if left overnight. The best we could do was mirrors in our pockets, find respite in getting away after 12-hour days, lug the load home, eventually fleeing, flesh shred, soul tattered. The hunters may find those flayed bits of us, see the lash marks and blood spatters on the walls, or scorch marks and horn shavings. We know we were occupied. We tried to earn a living. That division. Thank you, Monica. How am I doing for time? Oh my gosh. Well, time's, oh, okay, I'm gonna skip that one because time is tight. I only have a few more minutes. Mysticity So Mysticity, I love the word because doesn't Mysticity sound mystic? But it's the name of the type of whales without teeth. Dolphins and porpoises occupy this division. Oh, that's not the word, I'm forgetting. This poem was published in Eye to the Telescope, the issue on ghosts. So Mysticity. When Inuits pray to the whale, their prayer boat captain lifts his arms, sings aloud that all be kept from harm, that this vessel of life will surrender, relinquish its one self for their many, and that all whale is and carries transforms to fuel their community. Below the blue sublittoral zone, after brine stung their eyes, burnt their skin, filled their noses and mouths, try as they might to float, spread starved limbs on indifferent waves, dreamt of reaching far home shores of palm wine, mask dance, foo-foo. Some embraced the inevitable. Others fought with the same outcome. These incarcerated, these enslaved, these forsaken, keyholed, shackled, and bound to an alien ledger for insurance, jettisoned into the sea. The whale met the many and recognized their purity of anguish, their longing to rise up and know land again, to see sea and light above the waves that buried them, to breathe free. They reached out to her, exchanged knowledge of a shared cruelty by the same slayers who used without gratitude, killed without hunger, who stole and discarded life for profit. Whale was 100 when she swam by these waiting souls who attached to her like the barnacles she wore, swirling around her until each found the right spot, cemented their remains of beings to her vastness, armored her, informed her. Some entered whale song. Some became sirens after a century of ocean crossing. Others protected her, warning her away from murderous ships, harpoons, and ports that rendered her kin lamp oil and beauty cream for abandoned wives. The wreath of death preserved her life. Mysticity. So that's my take on ghost poem and how whales and my lost ancestors united. I'm going to pause for a second because it says that there are two people in the waiting room. Okay, I only have 6 more minutes. Okay, so I wanted to do tastings of some of my concerns in the speculative, and with only 6 more minutes, let me see, 3 poems. I think I can get the 3 poems in 6 minutes. I think, as I said before, 15 minutes could be just 2 poems, and I tried to squeeze some more in. Okay, I'll stop doing that so I can squeeze them in. But I want to explain why. I'm delighted. Thank you, Sundress, which Sundress had a competition that I won, and I'm in the process of editing a collection of BIPOC speculative poetry called Nambono, which is Zulu for vision. But I also chose to include sea poems in this reading because I'm editing later this year, Eye to the Sea, coming from the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association. If you're a speculative poet, please send me some work for that also. It will be on the sea and it's Eye to the Telescope. This next poem is Whale Talk, and I'm so gratified to be in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, a magazine I've long admired. This poem is in there, Whale Talk. Sperm whale emanations paralyzed the diver's hand for 4 hours. He had put forward that tiny bit of frail human architecture. Their clicks stunned it still. They don't engage the submersible nor the equipment burdened body. You must present yourself unencumbered and unshielded and hear their unspooling speech, which voyages deep, wet distances. Speech which spans a globe of liquid surrounding a roiling molten heart. Speech traversing realms and territories of nation states freely. Speech which doubtless does as much as it undoes, clicks you from the inside out, moves as much as it halts, from brains 6 times larger than ours, possessed 15 million years longer, dense spindles packing each micro measure with sonic layers of multiple meaning, holds within its music power, within its power magic. Sperm whale, come speak me whole. Whale Talk. I'm going to share the screen so you can see as I read this. Hope Floats, which was published in Raising Mothers Futurism issue earlier this spring. Hope Floats. Envision this want to be an airship, like a bitten off piece of cathedral cake, ceramic, concrete, shale, earth and water, lancet arch, stained glass windows, bits of filigreed fenestrations, balletic balustrades, tenuous turrets from which to fling wide your arms above factory, fumed air and unglazed sun. Those tattered undersails, mere decor, dove dodge and wind guides, nothing to do with propulsion, scooping ventilation by kilns and kitchens, and those fan blade rotors like flat umbrellas, floral, wind spinning wearers must be for some other cooling or warming, directing air to heat rooms, creating thermals because the tethered vessel is so soaked with buoyant magic, it must be tied to the ruins from which it sprang, the remains of its making. An exegesis of ecclesiastic architectonics is this defiance, a maundering mobile majesty, a monumental heresy, housing children of dreamers, rabbit-ready angel spawn who learn the star-spangled sky as alphabet, resonate and respond to air currents. Rock-a-bye baby sailors raised by this village vessel of good cooks and caring creatives through love to be loving. Hope floats, dag nabbit, hope floats. My last poem. Time's up. Time flies. Thank you all for being here. As Yemaya, this appears in my Elgin nominated collection of the Wares. I'm very grateful for that. as Yemaya, who's a Orisha, patron spirit of the oceans. And Yemaya, from the Yoruba, she came across the sea. She exists in the New World as well. And she's depicted as a queenly mermaid, as Yemaya. When I was paralyzed, my two legs felt as one, sparking something that began below my waist. Disconnected from my will, they floated on their own in a sea of perception, embraced everywhere, sensate and sinuous. I swam up from brokenness into dream, darting in 3 dimensions, as unafraid of up as down, as skillful with left as right. My great lungs fill with air, my long arms strengthen with each sure stroke as I plunge toward my sister, pink and black leatherback, who does not blink as we match motions and dance. And all around me, light from water crossing foremothers who did not fly, but swam and sang across hidden valleys and buried mountains as humpbacks do, all around the globe at once in a chorus of continuance, history sharing like right whales who survived their Holocaust, carry memory for hundreds of years, outlive generations of miscreants and murderers. Unforgotten wounds, now mere tattoos and testament to what endures. And they told me the land forsakes, consigns me to the chair, wheels me in the corner, beyond the edge, water, boys, and welcomes, and her wide board crinoline flippers gleam in dusk, sparkle at dawn, flare at midday, beckon remembrance as she sirens return as Yemaya. Thank you for listening. And now I've got 8 minutes left for questions. And I'm 7 minutes left for questions. And I'm looking down because I've got someone who's assisting me by texting me questions from the Facebook listeners. But for those of you who are on Zoom with me, you can put it in the chat. Okay, so I don't see not any questions from the Facebook folks. I will try one more time to look, okay, so let me talk about what I'm working on. I'm currently working on Nambono, for those who may have missed me talking about Nambono, which is a collection of speculative poetry by Black, Indigenous, people of color, speculative poets. It's been amazing to read people from all over the world and to see them engage in the possibility. But I just get thrills seeing that I'm reading Vietnamese poets and folks from different places in Africa, as well as all over the US and Canada. Not so many folks from Europe. So that's one thing I'm working on. And I think I also mentioned I read poems about the sea to encourage other people to create speculative work about the sea also and share it, hopefully for the Eye to the Telescope on the Sea. That's slated for later this summer and fall. Let's see. The crossover and connections between my poetry and, well, okay. So, hey folks, I made these, and these are my spirit people, my earrings. I work in a number of media. So the crossover for me is part of me. I happen to have been blessed to have been born in New York City in an era when you did not have to pay to go to museums. And so childhood was filled with trips to the Museum of Metropolitan, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Museum of Natural History, the Museum of Modern Art, you know, for all the reasons that adults come to New York. Just imagine that treasure trove of being a child there, and being with folks who said, you know, we can't summer in Europe, but you're gonna have a world-class exposure and experience anyway. So art is a part of my life. I was a music major in high school. I played the cello and bassoon. So there's lots of crossover for me in terms of every art form, except for one. There's one, you name it, I've tried it or do it, except for one that I've only done socially, and that's dancing. So I never formally studied dance, but everything else is very much still a part of my life. Let's see, what else? Oh, does poetry influence crochet? I forgot to mention crocheting. So I'm a crochet designer. I have 130 patterns published. I've been in crochet magazines and collections. I've not done much crocheting since COVID, for whatever reason. Since COVID, I've thought more about I've thought about my hand paper making, haven't done a lot of that, but my wire work and paper and cutting paper and so I'm on Instagram. You can check me out there on Instagram. Oh my gosh, 2 more minutes. Okay. On Instagram, I've got paper cuttings that include spaceships and Afrofuturistic renderings of Black folks. How water and water creatures touch on the speculative. How do these concepts inform each other? I had the most marvelous semi-conversation with someone about My Octopus Teacher. If you've got Netflix, please check out My Octopus Teacher. Water, we have great hubris, as someone pointed out, to call where we live Earth when most of the world is water. And we are born in water. We are born in an inner sea. So how do these concepts inform each other? One informs us subconsciously, constantly. We need to treasure the water. We need to love the water. We need to not pollute the water. We need to be kinder to the water, the mother water, the water from which we come. And hence my interest. I also, bit of biography, I'm a 3rd generation American, and I was born on an island, Manhattan, from people from the islands. The islands were Montserrat and Jamaica. So water, water, island, 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 water, water, water. And I miss so much not being in New York City, in this land of the Onondaga, although they've got little waters. They've got the small lakes, and there's a river that runs through my town. Thank goodness. I've got to have water. So I could talk more and more about that, but our time is up. And let me thank once more. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you, Sundress Publications, for enabling these, enabling and facilitating this community. It is so lovely. Peace, blessings to you all. Stay well. Thank you.